She saved a man's life after pulling 40 bullets from his body, but 24 hours later, she was the one fighting to survive. The sound of frantic footsteps slammed against the sterile hospital floors. Monitors were screaming. Someone yelled, "We're losing him! Get trauma room 3 ready, now!" Tanya Ellison's heart pounded as she sprinted down the hallway, gloves half on, scrubs wrinkled from a double shift she hadn't even finished. Nights at St. Mary's Medical Center in Indianapolis could be unpredictable, but this was chaos on another level. The doors burst open, and that's when she saw him. Blood everywhere. A man so broken, it didn't seem possible he was still alive. His body looked like it had been through hell and back. Bullet holes everywhere, some patched in the field with makeshift bandages that were soaked through. She counted at least 40 gunshot wounds. "Who is he?" Tanya demanded, shoving her arms into a sterile gown. A soldier, face stone cold, muttered, "No questions, just save him." His voice was like steel, but Tanya caught the fear behind it. Whoever this man was, he mattered, a lot. As Tanya worked, her hands moved faster than her mind. She clamped arteries, suctioned blood, issued orders like a general in battle. The room felt like it was shrinking, heat and panic mixing with the metallic smell of blood. But the strange thing? No one would say his name. Not the soldiers, not the guy in the black suit who never left the corner. They just stood there, like statues, watching every move Tanya made. 3 hours later, against every odd, his chest rose on its own. Tanya looked at him, this stranger with scars all over his body, and whispered under her breath, "You're not dying on my table, not tonight." She thought saving him would be the proudest moment of her career. She thought this night would define her as a hero. But by morning, Tanya Ellison wasn't a hero at all. She was unemployed, humiliated, and had no idea her life was about to spiral into something she could never have imagined. Before that night, Tanya Ellison's life was simple, stressful, but predictable. She had spent 12 years as a trauma nurse, building a reputation at St. Mary's Medical Center for being the one person you wanted in the room when things went south. Fast hands, sharp mind, and a heart that wouldn't let her quit on anyone. She lived on the east side of Indianapolis in a modest 2-bedroom apartment above a coffee shop that always smelled like roasted beans and burnt toast. Rent wasn't cheap, but she made it work by picking up extra shifts, sacrificing weekends, and skipping things most people take for granted. Vacations? Not in Tanya's vocabulary. Her day-to-day was a grind. Wake up, grab a protein bar, hit the hospital by 6 a.m., and hope for a 30-minute lunch somewhere between car accidents and gunshot victims. Yet, for all the chaos, Tanya loved her job. Not for the money, it barely paid enough to cover her bills, but because she believed what she did mattered. She had a gift for saving people, and that gave her a sense of purpose nothing else could. Friends? A few, but most of them stopped calling after the 5th canceled dinner plan. Relationships? Forget it. Her last boyfriend left 2 years ago with a text that read, "You love your job more than me." Maybe he was right. Still, Tanya didn't complain. She was proud of who she was, resilient, hardworking, and focused. Every scar on her hands told a story of a life she fought to save, and that was enough for her. At least, it used to be. That evening started like any other. Tanya clocked in at 7 p.m. for a 12-hour shift, mentally bracing herself for the usual. A car pile-up on I-70, a bar fight gone wrong, maybe even a heart attack or two. She grabbed a cup of bitter coffee from the vending machine and joked with her colleague, "If one more guy comes in claiming chest pain just to get out of work, I swear I'm switching careers." They laughed. It felt normal. Safe. But normal didn't last. The calm ended the second those ER doors flew open, and Tanya realized nothing in her 12 years of experience had prepared her for what was coming. Because when that Navy SEAL was wheeled in, bleeding out and silent, Tanya's life stopped being ordinary and started heading straight into the kind of storm you don't come back from. The hospital doors slammed open so hard they hit the wall. A gust of cold air swept through the ER, along with the sound of boots pounding the floor. Tanya looked up from a patient chart and froze. 2 men in tactical gear were rushing a gurney inside. The patient lying on it didn't even look human at first glance. Just a mangled body drenched in blood. His camouflage uniform was shredded, soaked through so badly Tanya could barely tell the original color. His skin was ghostly pale, lips a shade too close to blue. "Trauma Bay 3, Tanya shouted, instincts taking over before fear could creep in. As the soldiers rolled him past, she caught a glimpse of his torso, and her stomach tightened. Bullet wounds everywhere. Some were small and neat. Others were jagged, like the bullets had torn through muscle and bone. She counted fast. 1, 2, 5. Then she lost track. At least 40. No human body should still be breathing after that. "What the hell happened?" Tanya barked, jogging beside the gurney, snapping gloves onto her hands. "Classified," one of the soldiers said without looking at her. His jaw was locked, voice clipped. "Classified?" Tanya shot back, nearly laughing. "He's dying. I don't need a story, I need facts. Blood loss, toxins, infections, anything that tells me how to keep him alive." The soldier didn't answer. Inside Trauma 3, chaos erupted. Machines beeped like sirens, nurses scrambled for supplies, and Tanya's voice cut through it all. "2 large-bore IVs, now. Prep for intubation. Someone call radiology. Wait, no, scratch that. We don't have time. Where's my suction?" She turned to the soldiers, her eyes sharp. "If he's allergic to anything, you better tell me now." Still nothing. They just stood there, like statues guarding a secret. Behind them, a man in a black suit leaned against the wall, hands clasped, face unreadable. He wasn't military, not with that slick tie and polished shoes, but the way everyone gave him space told Tanya he was someone powerful. As Tanya worked, the room became a war zone. Blood pooled faster than they could suction it. Arteries spurted like broken pipes. Every time she clamped one, another started leaking. Sweat dripped down her temple, but her hands never stopped moving. "BP's crashing," a nurse shouted. "Push 1 of Epi, now," Tanya yelled. Her mind was on overdrive. Every decision mattered. Every second counted. For a moment, she locked eyes with the patient. His lids fluttered weakly, like he was trying to stay awake. That's when Tanya noticed something. A tattoo on his chest, barely visible under the blood. It was an eagle clutching a trident and anchor. Navy SEAL insignia. No wonder they were so tight-lipped. Whoever this man was, he wasn't just any soldier. "Hang in there," Tanya whispered as she stitched another gaping wound. "You're not dying tonight. Not on my watch." Hours blurred into minutes. Tanya didn't even feel the ache in her back anymore. Every part of her body was on autopilot. Clamp cut, suture repeat. At one point, she broke protocol and used a transfusion method she wasn't authorized for, but she didn't care. She wasn't about to let a man who survived whatever hell he came from die on her table. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the monitors steadied. The soldier's breathing evened out. Tanya exhaled for the first time in hours. She had done it. Against all odds, he was alive. A shaky laugh escaped her lips as she peeled off her gloves. Somebody get him to ICU, and someone get me a gallon of coffee. She expected relief, gratitude, maybe even a pat on the back from her boss. Instead, when she stepped out of that trauma room, the man in the black suit was waiting for her. He stared at her like she had just broken a law. "Good work," he said flatly. "Now forget everything you saw tonight." Tanya frowned. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, like steel under velvet. "This never happened." Tanya's gut twisted. She had no idea why, but something about his tone told her this wasn't a request. She laughed it off, thinking he was joking. But deep down, a little voice whispered, "You just stepped into something you don't understand." And by the next morning, that voice would be right, because Tanya Ellison, the woman who saved a Navy SEAL's life, was about to lose everything she worked for in one brutal conversation. The sun was barely up when Tanya walked into the hospital the next day, exhaustion dragging at her bones. Her scrub smelled like antiseptic and coffee, and her eyes burned from just 3 hours of sleep. Still, there was a little spark inside her, a quiet pride. She'd done something extraordinary. Against all odds, that soldier was alive because of her. She expected a smile from someone, maybe even a good job from her supervisor. Instead, the head of nursing, Deborah Stanton, met her in the hallway with an expression that froze Tanya in place. "Tanya, can you come with me?" Her tone wasn't friendly. It wasn't neutral either. It was cold. Tanya blinked. Sure, everything okay? Deborah didn't answer. She just led Tanya down the corridor in silence, her heels clicking against the tile. They bypassed the usual meeting rooms and went straight into HR. That's when Tanya's stomach dropped. Inside, a man from Human Resources sat stiffly behind a polished desk. He didn't smile, didn't even look up from his paperwork until Tanya sat down. "Ms. Ellison," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Thank you for coming in." Tanya glanced between them, a nervous laugh escaping. Did I do something wrong? Because if this is about my overtime hours, we're terminating your employment effective immediately, the man cut in. His voice was flat, rehearsed, like he'd said those words 100 times before. Tanya stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "I'm sorry. What?" Deborah cleared her throat. "Your actions last night were a direct violation of hospital policy." "What policy?" Tanya demanded, her voice rising. "Saving a patient's life?" The HR man kept his tone calm, almost robotic. "You performed unauthorized procedures, broke protocol, and put the hospital at significant legal risk." Tanya felt heat rush to her face. "Are you serious? He was dying. You weren't there. We didn't have time for approvals or waiting on some bureaucratic checklist." "The decision is final," he said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Your severance details are inside." Tanya didn't touch it. Her hands were trembling, fists clenched on her lap. "This is insane. I just saved a man's life. Do you understand that? If I hadn't done what I did, he'd be dead." Neither of them blinked. They didn't care. Deborah's voice softened slightly, like she wanted to sound sympathetic but couldn't quite pull it off. "Tanya, just sign the papers and go home, please." Tanya stood up slowly, her heart pounding so hard it made her ears ring. She grabbed the folder, not because she wanted it, but because she refused to let them see her fall apart. The walk out of the hospital felt longer than any shift she'd ever worked. Every step code in her head, fired, fired, fired. She couldn't even say goodbye to her team. No one looked at her, no one spoke. It was like she'd vanished already. By the time Tanya reached the parking lot, tears were burning her eyes. Not because she lost a job, she'd lost her identity. Everything she sacrificed, all the nights she worked until her hands cramped, every patient she saved, gone just like that. She sat in her car for an hour, staring at the steering wheel. Anger simmered in her chest, mixing with humiliation and confusion. Something wasn't right. This wasn't about hospital policy. It was about that man. The SEAL. The way those soldiers acted. The suit in the corner. The warning to forget everything. It all came rushing back like a bad dream. Tanya whispered to herself, "What the hell did I get pulled into?" She thought it was over. She thought losing her job was the end of the nightmare. But the nightmare was only just beginning. Because 24 hours later, a black SUV would pull up to her apartment and the man she saved would be inside. The next day crawled by like a bad hangover. Tanya barely left her couch. Her phone buzzed with texts from coworkers, short, awkward messages like, "Heard what happened. Sorry, girl." She didn't answer any of them. She didn't have the energy to explain, and honestly, she didn't even know what to say. Her apartment felt smaller than ever, filled with silence and the faint hum of her refrigerator. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, the soldier covered in blood, the tattoo on his chest, the look in the man's eyes who told her to forget everything. Forget? How? By evening, she was still in her scrubs from the night before, hair tied up in a messy bun, staring at a half-empty mug of coffee on her table. She was debating whether to shower or just crawl into bed when she heard it. The sound of tires crunching slowly over gravel outside. Tanya frowned. Nobody visited her unannounced. Her friends always texted first, and she wasn't expecting deliveries. She peeked through the blinds, and her stomach flipped. A black SUV sat at the curb. Not just any SUV. One of those sleek, government-looking vehicles you only see in movies or outside important buildings. Windows tinted dark enough to hide whoever was inside. Her pulse spiked. For a moment, she thought about hiding, pretending she wasn't home. But before she could move, the passenger door opened, and a man stepped out. Tanya's breath caught. It was him. The Navy SEAL she'd spent hours fighting to save was standing on her street, alive. He looked completely different now. Clean clothes, hair trimmed, standing straight like nothing had ever happened to him. No tubes, no monitors, just a towering figure radiating calm strength. And something else Tanya couldn't read. Her hands shook as she opened the door. You... Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard. What are you doing here? He didn't answer right away. He just studied her, his sharp blue eyes scanning every inch of her face like he was memorizing it. Finally, he spoke. We need to talk. Tanya laughed nervously, shaking her head. No, we don't. You almost died in my trauma room, and because of that, I lost my job. So whatever this is, whatever this game is, I'm done. He took a step closer, his voice low, steady. This isn't a game. Something in his tone made Tanya's chest tighten. She looked past him and saw the driver still sitting in the SUV, watching like a hawk. Then what is it? Tanya shot back. Why am I being punished for saving your life? The man's jaw clenched. He glanced around like he was checking for ears on the walls, then leaned in just enough for her to feel the weight of his words. Because the people who came after me last night, they know you exist now, and they don't like loose ends. The words hit Tanya like ice water. Her throat went dry. What are you saying? She whispered. I'm saying, he replied calmly, you're not safe. And if you want to stay alive, you're coming with me. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Tanya stared at him, trying to decide if he was crazy or if her entire life had just tipped into something far darker than she could ever imagine. She thought losing her job was the worst thing that could happen. But now Tanya Ellison was staring at a man who claimed her life was in danger, and she had no idea if she could trust him. Tanya stood frozen in the doorway, her fingers gripping the frame like it was the only thing keeping her upright. You expect me to just get in that car with you? Her voice was shaky, but she forced her chin up, trying to sound stronger than she felt. The man didn't flinch. You don't have a choice. Excuse me, Tanya snapped, anger flaring through the fear. I always have a choice, and right now, my choice is to call the cops. Don't, he said sharply, cutting her off. His eyes locked on hers with a weight that made her heart thud harder. If you call anyone, you'll get yourself killed, and maybe a few cops too. These people don't care about badges, they don't care about rules. Tanya stared at him, her pulse racing. What people? Start making sense, because right now, you sound like a bad action movie. He exhaled slowly, scanning the street before stepping closer. My name is Logan Hart, Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy. Or, at least, I was. The mission I was on before you saw me, it wasn't supposed to go south. But it did. Someone sold us out. Someone inside our own system. Half my team didn't make it out. Tanya's breath hitched. She glanced at the SUV again, then back at him. And what does that have to do with me? You treated me. You kept me alive when they needed me dead. His voice was calm, but hard as stone. That makes you a problem for them. You saw things you weren't supposed to see. My injuries, my tattoo, even my face. They don't want questions asked, and they're betting you're smart enough to start asking them. Tanya swallowed hard. Suddenly, the firing made sense. The cold looks in HR, the man in the suit telling her to forget everything. It wasn't just hospital politics. It was something bigger. So you're telling me, she said slowly, because I did my job, now I've got a target on my back? Logan nodded once. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Tanya's chest felt tight, like the walls of her apartment were closing in. Why are you even here then? Why risk coming back? Why not just disappear and let me deal with it? For the first time, his expression softened. Because you saved my life. I'm not letting them take yours. His words landed heavy. Tanya didn't know if it was the truth or a line, but something about the way he said it, the quiet certainty, made her believe him. Still, fear clawed at her ribs. So what now? You kidnap me and we go on the run? That's your plan? Logan almost smirked. Not exactly. I'm taking you somewhere safe, somewhere they can't find you. And if I say no? Then, he said simply, you won't live to see next week. Tanya turned away, pacing her tiny living room as her mind spun. Every fiber of her being wanted to scream at him to leave, to slam the door, call the cops, and pretend this was all some twisted dream. But deep down, she knew he wasn't lying. She remembered that night, the soldiers' cold stares, the suit's warning, the way HR tossed her out like trash without a real explanation. None of that was normal. She stopped pacing and faced him again. "If I go with you, how do I know this isn't some setup? How do I know you're not just dragging me into something worse?" Logan's eyes held hers, steady and unblinking. "You don't. You just have to trust the same instinct that made you save my life." Her stomach flipped. That instinct? It hadn't failed her in the ER, but this was different. This was everything she knew about her life being ripped apart in one night. "5 minutes, Logan said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Pack what you need. We're out of here." Tanya stared at him for a long moment, then at the SUV idling outside like a black shadow waiting to swallow her world whole. Finally, with trembling hands, she grabbed a backpack from the closet and started throwing in clothes. Her life as she knew it was gone, and whatever was waiting for her out there, it was dangerous, messy, and completely out of her control. But as she zipped up the bag and turned toward Logan, one thought burned louder than the fear. If they think I'm just going to roll over and die, they picked the wrong nurse. She was about to step into a reality where nothing made sense, and she had no idea the next words out of Logan Hart's mouth would change everything. The SUV hummed down a deserted stretch of highway outside Indianapolis. Tanya sat in the back seat, arms crossed tight, her backpack at her feet. Logan sat beside her, calm as stone, while the driver kept his eyes fixed on the road like a man who didn't blink. For the first 20 minutes, no one spoke. Tanya's mind was a storm. Questions, fear, anger. Every few miles, she glanced at Logan. His posture was rigid, but his jaw was tense, like someone carrying more weight than his body could hold. Finally, she broke the silence. "So this safe place, what is it? Some bunker, military base?" Logan shook his head. "Safer than that. No cameras, no trails. No one knows it exists, except the people who built it." "Sounds like a prison," Tanya muttered. "It's better than a bullet in the back of your head." That shut her up. But inside, the fear was morphing into something else, a burning question she couldn't ignore. "Logan," she said slowly, "why are they after you, really?" He hesitated. For a second, Tanya thought he wouldn't answer. Then, without looking at her, he spoke. "We were sent to intercept a weapons deal. Only it wasn't weapons. It was a list, names. High-ranking officials selling secrets to foreign buyers. We got the list. But someone on the inside wanted it buried. They turned on us." Tanya felt her chest tighten. "So this isn't just about you. It's about exposing whoever's behind it." Logan nodded once. "And now you're in it too, because they think you know more than you do." Tanya swallowed hard. Her life as a nurse felt like it belonged to someone else now. Bills, shifts, coffee runs, gone. All because she refused to let a man die on her table. The SUV pulled off the main road and down a narrow path lined with trees. Tanya gripped the door handle, every nerve screaming. When they stopped in front of a cabin tucked deep in the woods, her breath hitched. Logan turned to her, his voice softer this time. "You can stay here as long as you need. You'll have protection, money, a new start if you want it." Tanya stared at him, her mind spinning. A part of her wanted to scream that she didn't want any of this. She wanted her old life back. But deep down, she knew that life was gone. "And if I don't?" she asked quietly. Logan's eyes met hers. "Then you fight. You go back out there and try to survive on your own. But trust me, they won't stop." Tanya looked away, her throat tight. All her life, she fought for others, for patients who had no one else. Now, for the first time, she had to fight for herself. As she stepped out of the SUV, the night air was cool against her skin. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was clear. She wasn't the same woman who walked into that hospital 2 nights ago. Logan followed her, stopping just short of the porch. "Tanya?" His voice was low, almost gentle. "You didn't lose everything. You just found out what it's really worth." Those words stuck with her as she walked inside, the door closing behind her like a chapter ending and another one opening. Sometimes life rips you out of everything familiar. Sometimes it shatters every plan you've made. And sometimes it's the only way to find out how strong you really are. So, what would you do? Walk away or step into a fight you never asked for? Tell me in the comments. And if this story had you on edge, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more.